Welcome to Spiritual Psychology. My name is Renee McKenna. I'm a therapist and shamanic healer. And today I want to talk about the hero's journey, which feels particularly applicable right now in the coronavirus and what's happening in our culture. The thing about myth and legend is that they speak to timeless truths about the human psyche, and they give us instructions for how to move through life, through difficulties, through challenges in successful ways. And they can also tell us what happens if we don't follow the instructions. The term hero's journey was coined by Joseph Campbell. He was a scholar and social archaeologist, and he found this mythic story in almost every culture on earth. The hero's journey is an expression of this universal process of personal growth and maturation that we all go through, individually and, I'm going to say, culturally. And I think that's a lot of what's happening right now, is that we're approaching a cultural crisis, and there's a lot of different ways that this can go, and we each have a part to play. My own belief is that the overculture is just a collective of our individual culture. We each have a culture within ourselves. We have a culture in our family, in our church or community, in our state, in our country. The hero's journey can be happening on lots of different levels. But because we are each like cells in a great body, when we do our individual work, we can affect the health of the whole. And our individual work is to grow on a soul level. And the hero's journey is like an instruction manual for how to do that well. In a traditional hero's journey, there's a terrible demon or dragon ravaging the countryside, and the hero goes on a quest to save the village. He challenges his own limitations, slays the dragon, and brings back the treasure which the beast has stolen. He returns the treasure to the village for the benefit of everyone and becomes a hero. We can take the process of the hero's journey as a map for our own inner experience, and it's interesting to look at each aspect of the hero's journey as a part of ourselves. And if we do that, we could say that the hero is us, the village is our life circumstance, and the dragon is our lower self, lurking in the shadows of our own unconscious, messing everything up. The dragon is all the stuff we find unacceptable about ourselves or scary about the world at large, stuff we don't want to deal with. We want to avoid or ignore or project outward onto other people and circumstances. It's the disowned part of ourself is the dragon. The dragon steals our treasure by keeping us from our own soul's purpose. It greedily and jealously hoards the gifts and talents of our purest and highest self deep in the cave of our own unconscious. Without this treasure, the village is impoverished or destroyed, and we live as frightened, victimized villagers. So the problem is that killing or destroying everything that frightens or harms us, it has limitations. If we believe that we are all part of a greater whole, then doing harm to anything or anyone eventually harms us as well. And I believe that there's a way to approach things that's a win-win-win, that we can set our own intention with the highest good for everyone involved, and that includes the dragon and the ignorant villagers. Now, in Western mythology, a dragon is generally seen as a negative thing, but it's interesting because from a more Eastern perspective, a dragon can be a challenge in the best sense of the word, and even good luck. A challenge is something to rise to meet, to learn from, or even to be sustained by. I was born in the year of the dragon. I have a lot of affinity for dragons. In fact, my first tattoo is of a dragon. So when we come to understand the dragon as the part of ourselves we ignore or avoid because it's frightening, our anxiety, depression, our trauma, our self-sabotage, or the deep wound that we've pushed down since childhood. Then we can come to see that our inner demons and dragons can actually bring us these gifts, the gift of healing, the gift of dissolving and moving through our fears. Our inner demons and dragons challenge our safety and our security. They move our sense of ground, and the greatest challenge of all, to our ego self and the limiting narrative that we have about who we really are. So in the traditional Western myth, heroes fight and slay the dragon and become the heroes they were destined to be. In spiritual psychology, We need to integrate the knowledge and wisdom gained from our experience rather than running around killing everything we find difficult or challenging. So from this perspective, the demon is making a spectacle of itself and destroying everything because, like other aspects of pain in our life, it has a message. And pain is always a message that something needs to be attended to, that something is wrong. And pain can be a call to growth and transformation. And when we view pain and difficulty from this perspective, then we don't need to fear pain anymore. We need to face it and see what it's trying to tell us. So when we turn toward our inner demons, when we can engage in dialogue with them, we find that they do have a treasure for us. The treasure of how we can face our deepest wounds and fears and challenges and become the hero of our own life. So from this more benevolent perspective, the treasure we are questing for in life is not something that we need to rip from the grasp of someone else. It's something that we've had inside of us all along. It's the treasure of our own unique gifts and talents to own and reclaim for ourselves. So when we bring the power of compassion into this process, then the dragon or the demon itself is healed and transformed and possibly becomes an ally. Just as intense, but now fighting to support our highest good rather than keeping our treasures buried and imprisoned. Our own hero's journey is that of identifying and liberating the gifts of our authentic self and transforming the processes that we've used to keep them buried in the cave of our own unconscious. So in times of great difficulty, it's imperative to remember or to come to know that there is so much help available to us if we know how to access it, that we do not have to go into the cave to face the dragon by ourselves. And whether we understand this ocean of consciousness we live in as our own higher self, God, nature, or universal mind is irrelevant. The truth is that we are all part of something greater than ourselves, and accessing higher power, whatever your understanding of Source may be, will change the course of your life, your experience of it, and the ability to move wisely and successfully through the challenges that life offers us. Life is supposed to change us. And if we subject ourselves to it deeply and trust the unfolding process, then we can live with more peace and even finding joy and fulfillment in the midst of difficulty. So like the greatest heroes, we don't have to travel the path alone. The Greek heroes were always asking for and receiving help from the gods and goddesses, and we can ask for that same help, whatever our understanding or misunderstanding of Source may be. And for me, the whole purpose of spiritual psychology is to offer people a fresh path to connect with power. Much of the spiritual path is about exploring and navigating our own internal world, seeking out important but long-buried parts of ourselves and retrieving the life energy they hold. It's really important for our development and wholeness. I believe the universal call is to heal and transform our inner demons and reveal the magnificent resources of our own highest self. And when we do that, because we're all connected as parts of a greater whole, what happens to one person affects everybody, positively and negatively. So when we do our inner work, we help the village being our own community, our country, the world at large. So by retrieving the treasure of our own authentic self, we enrich the lives of everyone we come in contact with, whether we're aware of it or not. And from this perspective, any personal growth work we do improves the quality of the collective pool of experience from which we all drink. So from an individual perspective, the question would be, what's the dragon in your own life? What problems is it causing? And what's the treasure it might be hoarding? And what do you need to become willing to face it down? From a collective perspective, coronavirus could be seen as a dragon or demon. And what treasure does it hold for us? How is coronavirus calling us collectively to grow and change? There's a New York shaman, Itzhak Beery, who speaks of his journey to the spirit of the coronavirus, asking what its purpose is. And the answer was that coronavirus is calling us on a world vision quest. And a vision quest is another approach to the hero's journey. Initiates leave their village or their regular life, generally go out into the wilderness by themselves and often fast for a couple of days. They subject themselves to the forces of nature. The purpose of a vision quest is transformation, maturation, and empowerment. Often people return from a vision quest with clarity about what their purpose is. In some cultures, people even come back with a different name based on what their experience is. Out of great challenges come great change. And though we may feel powerless over the larger forces and decisions being made, we are all connected and we all have an important part to play. More than we may think. We don't know what treasures lie in the cave or what the dragon in its helpful, benevolent form might bring. Stay safe, be well. Blessings on your path until we meet again. This is Renee LaValle McKenna for Spiritual Psychology.